Hello and welcome to Todd Rolls Dice, where we're going to dive back into the wonderful world of Middle-earth with the very first Middle-earth strategy battle game journal. This one focuses on the Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim, in the nicest possible way. What I hope is the final time we get something from the War of the Rohirrim. The last 12 months have been very focused, understandably so. This was the big film at the time, and it didn't do so well. But this was a big return to form for Lord of the Rings, was what they intended. It's not quite what happened. But they did launch the new version of Middle-earth strategy battle game off the back of this, with some wonderful sets. My review praises the box and all the contents, to be honest. I think rules-wise, now we have all of the profiles, all the army books. Game seems to be in a good enough state to start to push on. I hope that this is the last time we visit Helm, Hera, and Co, basically, because while I love some of those characters, this film doesn't do them justice, and anything tied to the film I think is tainted by its failure. That said, we are going to cover this journal it's the first time that I think we've had anything like this for a little while. Certainly in this style. This is very much a Horus Heresy Journal Tacticus style book, although this has a lot more going on, I think, in terms of gameplay, and it really follows the narrative a lot more than those Heresy books do, and I think that there's some really cool stuff in there. TLDR, I think this journal is incredible, and if you're a fan of Middle-earth strategy battle game, it's probably worth you picking up. It retails through Games Workshop at 17 Great British pounds. Obviously it will vary for your currency, but it should be around that value, and in all honesty, at that price, I don't think it's bad. I wouldn't want to see the prices go up. Let me be categorically clear on that. And they are available third party, so if you do want to get some discount, that's probably the best way to do it. Definitely a good pickup if you are a player and an enjoyer of the Middle-earth strategy battle game and Lord of the Rings. But what do we have in this book? This book obviously focuses on the events of that film. This is the Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim, is an expansion to the Middle-earth strategy battle game that provides a series of linked narrative scenarios and a treasure trove of hobby content, allowing fans to recreate the events of the Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim. Stand beside Helm Hammerhand and his daughter Hera as they strive to defend the people of Rohan from Wulf's quest for vengeance, or join the newly crowned Lord of the Hill Tribes in the destruction of Helm's kingdom. This is a 48-page expansion. Yeah, it's time to get those bingo cards out. 48-page is a favourite of Games Workshop. But this 48-page expansion contains all the information you need to play through the story of The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. You will need a copy of the Middle-earth strategy battle game rules manual and Armies of the Lord of the Rings to make full use of the contents of this expansion. That is because there are no profiles in this book. All the profiles you need are in that Armies of Lord of the Rings. But this expansion includes a linked campaign of 11 never-before-seen narrative scenarios, allowing you to recreate key moments from The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, a selection of alternative paint schemes enabling you to represent the forces of the various lords of Rohan, multi-stage painting guides on how to paint Wulf's horde of hill tribesmen, and step-by-step hobby tutorials for creating the lands of Rohan and a rabid Mumuk. Obviously all the usual licensing stuff there as well. Just to give you an idea, there's no real lore in this, because the lore is in the film, the lore is in the appendices of the books. It's not really Games Workshop's place to tell you the lore in big chunks. So this is very much focused on that 11 scenario campaign, but also the hobby guides, or painting guides, are really nice. Let's just get in, shall we? So it becomes quite apparent, and there is the contents page. Scenarios, well, we have an introduction, we have the War of the Rohirrim campaign leading into scenarios, which takes you up to page 30, and then 18 pages, or 17 pages of the hobby selection. It's very apparent here some of my criticisms of the War of the Rohirrim. This, as a still from the film, isn't terrible. It's Helm in all of his glory. That piece of artwork is one of the greatest pieces of artwork I have seen connected to this film. And I just think it is an incredible piece of artwork regardless. I love that artwork. And the difference between the concept art and the film Not good. Riders of the Mark, Brothers of Rohan, Arise, Helm Hammerhand, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Look how cool that is. If it was that style, I wouldn't have had any problem at all. And this is where I think the Games Workshop models actually capture the likenesses of the characters really well without going too far into the anime style. But we have our introduction, going through all of the things in here, telling you about the linked campaign, and then where you will find the different painting and hobby guides as well. I think that this book is just really well put together. So the campaign. You start off with to claim a throne, and you have both the good and the evil side of things, and you progress through these scenarios down to the last stand of Helm Hammerhand. And then it just takes you through. We've seen this setup. If you've seen any of my videos talking about the narrative scenarios of Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth strategy battle game, we've had the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy so far. I can see why they haven't done this one. But this goes through, basically, there is bits of lore and things. It's just recounting what's going on, the build-up to these battles. You've got your layout. It tells you how you set your board up. It doesn't specify terrain, although you can obviously switch out whatever fantasy terrain works. They would prefer you use the Games Workshop terrain, although that is quite sparse. The Rohan houses are stunning, but the rest of it, honestly, you could make some really nice terrain out of a bit of wood, bit of glue, the old-fashioned way, the Blue Peter way. But they just take you through each starting positions, objectives, the layout, the participants. This one, Helm Hammerhand, King of Rohan, against Frecker, Lord of the West March. It's not going to be a very long fight, is it? But this just gives you special rules and things. This is just familiar to what we've seen. It's not actually in the timeline, because I thought that I can't remember the film. What happens first? Helm and Frecker or the Rabid Mumuk? But again, this goes through, and it tells you which participants you need. It tells you who to play for this narrative campaign. There's no reason why you can't swap those out for other characters. But I'm not going to go into any detail on these. I'm just going to give you a quick overview here. The models, the printing, the artwork, it is quite nice. You do have to have some stills from the film, which, when we get to the live action films, I'll be much happier with. But it just takes you through basically the entire film, because there isn't that many events in it. And if you haven't seen the film, there is probably spoilers in what I'm showing you here. I keep nudging that book downwards, don't I? This, actually, the Streets of Edoras, and then Edoras Burns, that's two scenarios that I do really want to play. Probably my favourite scenes in the film. Really enjoyed that. And then you can see there, that is a burned out one of the Rohan houses that you will get a hobby guide for later in the book. Really, really nice. The Wrath of Helm Hammerhand. Good participants, Helm Hammerhand. Evil, everything else. Beasts of the Long Winter, that was a nice little scene in the film as well, with the snow troll. And then finally the last stand. So this is a link campaign. Again, I'm not going to go through all of the details and everything, but it does talk you through it in the book, and it seems to flow pretty well with the events. Classic scenes. Riders of Rohan against Mumuks. But stunning. The Lord of the Rings miniatures, while they aren't cheap, and they are definitely starting to show their age, some of them. I mean, you couldn't tell that the Mumuks were 25 years old, whereas that model there of Haleth, I think it is, and those warriors of Rohan there, and the hill tribes, to be honest, you couldn't tell that they were brand new. The Haradrim look a bit derpy, but it still works. I would love to see a refresh of some of this stuff though. But then we get into the Destruction of Edoras, talking about the hobby section and how you can actually construct, and it is legitimately talking you through how you can build this, what parts you'll need. Obviously Games Workshop don't sell bits of wood, so I'm actually quite surprised that they've gone back to this, what feels like a traditional hobby section style of telling you how to use everyday products or building products and actually make something that they don't sell. This is how you do it, Games Workshop. This is incredible. So pleased that this is in. And then it goes into hill tribes encampments as well. So you can burn down the houses, and then you can make little tent huts and a fireplace, and this is what they should all have. Alright, you can't do this with 40k. I absolutely accept that Warhammer 40,000 doesn't really lend itself to the hobby section at this point in time, with how they've positioned it with all of their L-shaped ruins and bollocks like that. But this game does, Horus Heresy does, and you've seen a few of these hobby guides in Horus Heresy, nowhere near as detailed as this. But I'm starting to think, and there's an upcoming White Dwarf, at time of recording, it's the next issue, that has a hobby section that talks you through making things like this, basically. We'll have more details on that when we get it. But this is the stuff that they used to do. They used to make whole books about making things like this. This is what they need to do to keep themselves, I think, going with the community. Improving the lore. In Lord of the Rings you can't really do that so much, but build on the lore of your own franchises. Create stunning new models like these for all of your games. I have no complaints about any, even the hill tribes. The hill tribes are incredible. I want to see more of this stuff in the future Games Workshop, not just in the Middle-earth strategy battle game books, but in the Horus Heresy books, in Age of Sigmar books, even in 40k books, if you can squeeze it in and it makes sense. I want to see more hobby guides. Hell, even if it's just a once a month on Warcom or in White Dwarf, there's an article about making something. This stuff should be a staple of what you do. You charge enough money for your miniatures, at least help people make terrain on a budget. Can you tell I'm a fan of this, and I want more of this? We then get into the Rabid Mumuk from the scenario earlier on. And it just talks you through, obviously you need to buy the Mumuk from them, which is fine, it's their model, but it talks you through how to build it up to a point, which bits to remove, how you fill in all the gaps, you reposition it to fit that, what you do with the base, and then painting as well. This stuff is fantastic, actually showing people that they can kitbash and customize models in such a way. I don't think most of this hobby needs permission to do this, but some people feel like they can't. And this is a positive step towards people being able to play with their models. Ever since I was in the hobby, I was cutting heads and arms off all kinds of miniatures to reposition them or put new ones on, and I always took it upon myself to customize my armies. Being able to see this stuff in official Games Workshop products, I think is a big step towards people becoming more comfortable with being able to do it. I'm not saying go and buy a Mumuk and try this at home unless you really want to, or you have a spare Mumuk kicking around. I'm not sure I would go and buy a Mumuk to do this unless I'm doing the campaign, which is something I'd love to do down the channel if we could have a linked campaign scenario thing. That would be incredible. But just seeing this stuff is a real positive step back to, I think, how the hobby used to be. This book feels very much like a beautiful throwback to the nostalgic years that I remember when I was originally playing Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth strategy battle game. And that's what this book does, it just fills me with joy. Painting your warriors of Rohan, so going through leather, boot leather, metals, skin, shields, beards, horses, all very important, and horse track. And then you get a breakdown, and this is also really good. Not something quite new, because they do this well, they have done this in the past. But breaking down, what have we got here, 6 different Lords of Rohan and how you paint their miniatures. And it's nice and easy. You can switch out these colours for this. Absolutely fantastic. And I do like that Lord Freylaf, the Lord of Harrowdale, has his colour scheme in there as well, because he now has a model with the release of this book. And the same for Hill Tribes. And I love that it is the old traditional step-by-step guide. This is where you start, these are the steps you do, hopefully it's going to look something like this. Fantastic. And different options for doing fur different ways. And basing. This is, I mean, the fire one is incredible. You probably see it there better. This is exactly what these books should contain. And then a final bit of artwork. That one's not terrible, but that piece of artwork I think is stunning. And that's us. I'm not going to finish with a quote from Hera. Or am I? Maybe I will. Our people do not call this keep the Hornburg anymore. They have named it for its true king, Helm's Deep. Hera, Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. Hopefully you can see why I think that this journal is the best journal that they have done in a very long time. I don't have any knowledge of the... That's nowhere near centre, is it? Let's try that. I don't have any knowledge of the old world arcane journals or whatever they're called, but this, and as a Lord of the Rings fan I am completely biased, this is what I want to see. Certainly for Middle-earth strategy battle game, this is an incredible little journal. Alright, it's 48 pages, it's £17 through Games Workshop, it is available third party so you can get a discount. I would advise that. I also have an affiliate link for Wayland Games, they ship to the UK. I believe they also ship on the continent as well. But check that out, you still get the same discounts that you would ordering through them anywhere else, there's no change there. You can get up to 20% discount. I don't really know why I'm plugging that now because I bought this book through Games Workshop. This is what I want to see. And this is why I was excited for this book. This has lived up to my excitement, and I wasn't excited because of the content that they're focusing on with the War of the Rohirrim. I was excited because from this and the contents in here, I can see a 6, 7, 8 scenario linked campaign for Rangers in the North protecting the Shire, and then building little ranger camps. I mean, you can use the hill tribe camps and things, but building things like that, or orc encampments, or Mordor terrain, or, you know, Frodo's journey through Mordor, and bringing in certain different things. I like the fact that there is no profiles in this book. There should never be profiles locked in these journals. That's the one thing that Horus Heresy does that I don't like. And I think down the line, they're going to release Journal 2 with a brand new character. And if they don't have a profile in the army book, this is where they will put it. That is the specialist games team, specialist design team MO. With Necromunda, Horus Heresy, I believe the Old World as well. So they're going to have data sheets for characters in these books. That's something that I just have to accept. And I will potentially rile against, but it is going to be coming. And that day will be a sad day. But it is not this day. I love this. I love this. The people who worked on it. Do we get credits? Do we have credits? Produced by the Middle-earth team at Games Workshop. Thanks to the Ringwraiths for playtesting. It's sad that Games Workshop don't celebrate and name their staff in the credits, because Middle-earth Games team at Games Workshop, if you ever see this video, and I don't expect you will, but if any of you do see this, please pass my thanks on to the team, because this is the kind of stuff you should be making. This is a beautiful throwback to the golden days of the Lord of the Rings game for me, and the content that was available to create your own terrain, to do your own thing, to have a linked campaign, painting guides, hobby guides. This stuff is exactly what I want, and I want so much more of it. If you keep making the journals this good, but you're making them about the more well-known Hobbit, Lord of the Rings eras, the end of the Third Age, delving into the Second Age and the original rise of Sauron. But something like that, like this, you can take the entirety of the history of Middle-earth and make a 48-page journal about it in this style, and it would just be incredible. Brilliant start. Do not let up. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. If you've picked up this book and what you think of it, or if off the back of this review you're tempted to pick it up, I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this review, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel, do all of the YouTubey things that you'll be bored of hearing. But honestly, the support is incredible. It really does help the channel grow. I try and cover Middle-earth strategy battle game a lot. I have dropped off quite hard with the release of the Armies of Middle-earth army book, which is a shame, but we need to get back into it, because this is something that hopefully over December, when I have a little bit of spare hobby time, I'm planning on really picking up production of my Middle-earth army and doing more with this incredible game. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.